What's up YouTube, and welcome back to another Procreate tutorial where today we're going to create a very minimalistic blue moon scene where we've got a castle and a tree as our little subject matter. Now, as always, all of the requirements for today's design are linked in the description down below. That link will take you over to my Patreon where you can go ahead and find the canvas size, the palette for today's design, and everything else is built into Procreate. You won't need anything else. Now, just as a very important quick note, up until sort of around about 20-minute mark, my camera was set to a previous set of settings, which were not what I normally record my videos in. So if the colors fluctuate as my hand sort of moves around, just kind of ignore that up until the latter stages where it corrects itself, or I correct it to the correct setting. So just bear that in mind as we go through here. Anyway, enjoy today's tutorial. Make sure to tag me in your finished creations wherever you decide to share them. And check out my Patreon while you're over there, because I post 3 more exclusive tutorials to my Patreon supporters every single month. And the catalogue just continues to grow. That catalogue's currently at over 130 exclusive tutorials to my Patreon supporters. Anyway, with all that said, enjoy today's tutorial and let's get started. So let's first of all start off by going up to our actions. Let's go to our canvas tab and we're going to go ahead and add a drawing guide. Let's edit the drawing guide as I typically do and set it to 1/4 of our canvas size. So just set it to 500. And you're probably going to want to set it to like a pinkish tone that you can see with the white background, but equally with the dark tones later on as well. So hit done. So you can tap on this pill here and type it in or drag the line. Then hit the option of done. And then we're going to go ahead and on the empty layer here, we're going to go to our colors. And in the palette, we're going to grab the middle of that top row of colors. So it's the 3rd color on the top row. Your brush wants to be set to calligraphy and the monoline brush. It doesn't really matter necessarily what your brush size is. Just go ahead and draw in a circle. Quite large. Hold your pen down at the end and pop 1 finger on the screen and then let go. Then grab your cursor and then just go ahead and zoom out a little bit. You can use uniform and scale it up and down if you need to. And you want to position it in the center of your canvas. Now, if you use the option down here of snapping, you'll get these orange lines like you can see now, which lets me know I'm perfectly centered both vertically and horizontal against the canvas. And then we're just going to drag the color to the outside edge. And then it's just a matter of drawing in our design. So I'm going to go to my brush. I'm going to change it personally to the studio pen under inking. You can use whatever sort of solid brush that you prefer the aesthetic of. And I'm going to go ahead. What's the size set to? 29%. That will do for a moment. So we're going to start off just around about, say, down here and just drawing in like a bumpy, lumpy landscape into, say, like a hillside here that comes out, and then you want to kind of flat plane it a little bit and then go to the edge so you can drag and drop your color in. Now, of course, you don't want any sort of uneven kind of weird shaping like that. And by all means, bring the brush size down to something really small so you can get, you know, really granular in there if you want to. It's meant to be quite a simple design today, so try not to overthink it too much. But if you want to, you could add in like all of these, you know, bumps and lumps for rocky textures, or even a actual rock if you want to, like that, and drag and drop the color in. Maybe even another one off the side of it, a little something like that, just so that you end up with a little bit of a dip towards the middle, because this is where our castle's going to be, and then this is where our tree's going to be. And let's do the tree. Let's go ahead and set the size to around about the let's go to 30% to start with. And all you want to go ahead and do is just with a slight lean, just go all the way to the very top, nice and light with your pressure. And then as you get further down, just start pressing a little bit firmer. And that's kind of your main trunk. You can then run back up that, thickening it up. You can go all the way off to the very, very top as well and fill in at the bottom. And of course, as you go down, you want to make sure it gets a little bit wider. And this tree is quite close to us, so we can go ahead and, you know, kind of chunk it out a little bit if you want to. And then you can just stem off some other avenues from there. And all I'm doing is just measuring my brush pressure as I'm going and just getting it nice and light towards the top ends up there. And then let's do one that runs across and like across over towards here, and set your brush size to something a bit smaller if you're struggling. 9% on the brush size now, because I can then go ahead and decide if I want to press really firm. I can match this sort of weight of the branch that I initially had. And otherwise I can press really, really light and get some beautiful thin lines right on the edge of our little branches here. And you can just make them run over each other, overlap. They always look the best when you do that. You know, you overlap branches. Tree's not perfect in terms of things not overlapping each other. I say it every single time we draw trees. It's the same thing. It's the same rules. It's very easy to not overlap them and think that you should keep everything separate. I'm just going to thicken this up a tiny bit. You can see I'm not really giving it a great deal of sort of care necessarily. I can go back over shortly. And then occasionally you may even see that I press so light that we actually end up with gaps in the actual lines there. And I'm not too stressed about those either, to be honest. Let's go ahead and maybe run a small branch off the rear there. And perhaps we could go ahead and add in another one that runs all the way up from here. Maybe even sort of spirals across as well. You can really make the tree have some interesting character. The longer you can spend on it, arguably will look even better. And again, all you have to constantly keep doing is just taking a look and seeing if you need to thicken up the bottom of the tree, just so that the bottom has that chunkiness to it that we need. And you also want to kind of have a main sort of trunk area here, like what's the main avenue that goes from the bottom all the way up to the top. And you can just keep detailing. There's lots and lots of thin, small lines will look absolutely fantastic. It's not meant to be necessarily like a winter scene at all, but it is a bit scarce with the foliage. And I'm going to leave it like that as well. I want that kind of tree-like look to it today. So once you've done that, let's go ahead and add in our castle. So let's go to our actions. We're going to go ahead and edit the drawing guide. We're going to go to the option of symmetry. And we're going to drag this over towards this left-hand side over here and hit done. So that we've then got a line that we can build our castle with. Now I'm actually going to go ahead and tap on this layer and turn off the drawing assist just for a moment, because I think I personally need a little bit of a larger little sort of plinth up here to put the castle on. And I can always go ahead and sort of shave it down afterwards, but I need the ground, of course, to add the castle onto. So I'll go back to the layer, I'll tap on it and add the drawing assist again. So now it's using that. Now I'm going to go ahead and change my brush back to calligraphy and the monoline brush, just so that I can go ahead and use a solid brush that is not affected by the weight in any way. And we're just going to create a castle. So I'm going to start, say, as wide as I can get it. That looks pretty well, sort of widthy there. So I'm going to go ahead and draw in a straight line with a slight sort of pinch towards the top. It's just ever so slightly leaning in. And then you can just start sort of building out the castle. You don't have to make it perfect in any way. I'm just sort of drawing in the sort of main columns on the outer edge here. And then as I make my way in, perhaps it dips down and then it goes up again. And I'm just creating fun, just random avenues for the castle and like the sculpture of it up towards this kind of centerpiece where I'm going to go up. And then I'm going to go ahead and kind of create like an outward area, a little kind of balcony maybe. And then I want it to kind of curve inwards, and you can create whatever you like here. I will try and keep my canvas now a little bit straighter for you so you can match up to mine if that's something you're attempting to do. But I do urge you to maybe sort of draw maybe the same as mine and then just add something of your own. So maybe a little something like that. Maybe we could even let that swoop out and then come down as well. So I can fill that in manually. And because it's all on the same layer, as long as you've got it all boxed in, you can drag the color in. Now, just for a second, I'm going to go ahead and just add in the tops of these. So I'll draw a line and pop a finger on the screen. And then I'll go ahead and go up on both sides. And then let's go ahead and go maybe slightly outwards as well, up again. And you can see some lines are not sort of super perfect and straight and etc. I'm not really interested too much. Let's go ahead and just draw that out over to here. And then this is all sort of boxed in now, so I can go ahead and drag the color in. You only really want to pay attention to the silhouette, and you can build out a really fun castle-like design to it. You can also go ahead and perhaps go ahead and draw like a straight line across, another one straight down, and create like additional sort of elements to the castle a little bit lower down. Let's maybe try and do one more as well, like a little bit across. I want to draw in a straight line, that's why I'm holding my pen down. Pop another finger on the screen, like so, and then maybe you can just create these like little additional sort of areas that look like they're overhangs. They look really cool. So just drawing in rectangles, and sometimes you don't need to draw super perfect shapes every single time. Like that's not what it's all about sometimes. You can just have something that looks cool, and it can be quite free in terms of it doesn't need to be super straight all the time and super, you know, uniformed. Let's just create like a little bit of a peak on that too. I'm going to drag and drop color in and just keep creating a fun castle-like design. That looks pretty cool. I'm happy with that, and I'm equally quite happy with the fact that the rock also runs into there as well. Now, I actually will go ahead though and go to the layer. I'm going to tap on it and turn off the drawing assist now. I'm going to go ahead, and once I'm done with my castle, I can go ahead and edit the drawing guide back to the 2D grid and hit done. That way we can, triple check everything's in the same position as each other. And then you can go back to something like your inking and studio pen and just see if there's anything else you might want to do now. So for example, like there, I've just blocked that out a tiny bit with the cliff edge and maybe some more lines in there. And let's let this cliff edge just continue to sort of rise up on this opposite side and just fill that in quickly, just so that the sort of cliff edge looks like it kind of carries on like this almost. There you go. And it makes it also a little bit more unique because it's not the same on both sides. It should be a little bit more interesting to look at. And then I'm equally going to go ahead and just try and emphasize this kind of like gorge-like area here in the middle by just creating an additional bump here. And if you want to, you could even draw in like a small additional building down here. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to keep it simple. So let's go ahead and add in the layers that sit in behind. So we're going to create a new layer, drag it underneath your framed top layer, go to your colors. We're just going to go ahead and then move to this color here. It's the 4th color on that top row. And if we tap away, we're going to go ahead and just draw in behind here. And we're drawing in towards a gorge, remember? So you're going to want to come down and then go round into your starting point and then drag and drop your color in. Now these colors might be a little bit sort of hard to differentiate against the background or the framed color anyway. So just try your best to look at your own screen and just see what you're creating. All you need to do is just create 2 kind of pointed in areas here towards the middle. Let's then go to our layers again and create another new layer, drag it underneath, go to your colors and then grab it's the 5th color on that top row, this color here. And we're going to again just create another kind of cliff-like shape, and you can use your brush's pressure. And I'm going to just let it go all the way down, like a really steep drop off there, and round to drag and drop the color in, so that I've got like a difference between these two. This one's quite swooped in, and then this one's quite a sheer drop. I could even do something like that and add in even more of like a kind of cliff-like sort of staggered look to this one. And then I can go ahead and run in a little something in behind there as well, down into here, and then go round to my starting point. With these types of designs, you can keep it really simple. Don't have to overthink anything at all, and that's the fun of it. So you end up with this nice little sort of cut down into here, into this little spot, and perhaps we could go ahead and actually make this one on the left slightly different, just so it cuts across a little bit. It's now time to add in the ocean, so we're going to go ahead and create another new layer, drag it underneath, go to your colors. You just want to grab the sort of middle of these colors. It's the top of the 3rd column. Selection tool. You want to use rectangle. Tap on color fill until it turns blue. And then over here, roughly around about where my pen is now, just drag across, all the way across and let go. And then tap on your selection tool when you're done. Now that will create your ocean. The only thing you want to bear in mind is mine is incorrect technically, because this cliff edge here it's almost as if the straight line is running into a corner. So all I need to do is go back to the previous layer and the previous color and make a change that then allows that. So I could either use my eraser using something, say like the monoline brush, and hack away into it and put it a little bit lower than that horizon line, or I could go ahead and add more to it. You don't want lines running into corners. That's just a general rule for all of this this artwork. So that's just eliminated that a little bit now. So let's go ahead then and work on the sky in the background and come back to the water. So we create a new layer and drag it underneath your water there. We're going to go ahead and create 2 more, and then just for a minute, swipe from left to right, group them together and rename it and call it sky. Now we're going to do the gradient first, and then we're going to go and add in the stars and moon, etc. after. So on the bottom layer out of the 3 in the sky, go to your colors. You then want to go ahead and grab the top of the 2nd column and drag it onto the screen. That's your kind of middle color. That's going to sit in that middle band of the sky. We're then going to go to the layer above, go to your colors. We'll grab the light blue in the top of the 1st column. I'll switch it back to this view as well. And then we're going to go to our brush. We're going to go to airbrushing and soft brush. Set that size to something nice and large, maybe around about 30%. And all you want to do, left to right, across here, across your horizon, just creating a lovely blue tone at the bottom there. Keep it nice and light, nothing too heavy. And then go to your layers and go upper layer. Go to your colors again and grab the dark tone that matches the frame. So it's this one here, top of the third column. Now you need to be very light with this, and I'll show you in a minute how you can tone it down. Just go around the kind of top area here, just creating a light blend. If you press too firm, you're going to match your frame and it's not going to have any differentiation between it. It's just got to be super subtle, but just a little bit of darkness up towards that top edge. So you end up with this lovely glow from the bottom. If you press too firm, but you like the sort of positioning of it, just tap on the layer and bring its opacity down and just measure it against mine and try and match up accordingly. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and collapse the sky group down. If you swipe this to the left and duplicate it, it will duplicate the group, but then tap on the top one and flatten all those layers into one. And then drag that up and above your block of water that you created. Then tap on this and clipping mask it to the water. Grab your cursor, flip it vertically. You can go ahead and use freeform if needs be. So you could use freeform and just squish it down a little bit as well, maybe to like halfway of your screen. And then just move it slightly up like so that the lightest tone is in the sky and not on the water. So you could do something a little bit like this. You could keep flattening it down and see what measures up for you. And maybe you get a little bit of dark tone in here, but I want to keep measuring it by just moving it up and down and just seeing where I can get that separation line on my horizon, but still end up with that little bit of gradient. That's what we want. I'm going to tap on my cursor when I'm done, and then we should have a nice little reflection in the water. Now from there, we're going to add in the rest of the sky elements. So we're going to go back to that sky group, open it up using the arrow. And if you want to, you can now just pinch these three layers together. Tap on this layer, create a new layer, go to your colors, and then you're going to want to go ahead and use white. I've put it in the palette. It's the middle of the third column. Your brush wants to be the option. Your category will say luminance, but mine says this for some reason. And you want the light pen. And I've got the size currently set to my new favorite of 21%. I say favorite because this brush is pressure sensitive. So you can press really light and add in teeny tiny stars. There we go, we've got a little trail of them. Or you can press quite firm and add in some occasional bright spots. Now we're going to do our best here to fill out a really lovely, pretty sky scene. And this is the easiest way to do stars. I'm going to show you because we're going to give ourselves a nice blanket of stars. Even in behind the castle here, I'm adding in some stars and I'm just keeping them really light towards the bottom, a little bit more scarce than they will be at the top. But at the minute, we're just going to create a big blanket of stars. Now, if you're familiar with my tutorials, which by the way, I release a Procreate tutorial every single week here on YouTube, so please make sure to subscribe to the channel. It'll help me out a bunch. But we typically always just give ourselves a nice coverage and area of coverage of the sky. And you can get in here and keep adding in lots and lots of little ones, but that'll take forever. Once you've done this big sort of canvas and you've covered the majority of it, go to the layer, swipe it to the left and duplicate it, grab your cursor, use uniform and just scale it down in size. Scale it down to something like half the size and then just position it up there. Swipe that layer to the left and duplicate it. Grab your cursor, rotate it maybe slightly and move it across to the opposite side and tap on your cursor when you're done. You can then go ahead and go to the layer. You could go ahead and swipe that to the left again and duplicate it. Grab your cursor again and make it even smaller. And again, you can see I'm positioning them a little bit higher in the scene. But all I'm doing is just duplicating these star layers and just filling out a very dense level of stars in the sky. I love these sky designs when they've got lots of tiny little sort of speckles in here and it just fills out the entirety of the scene. It looks really cool and just gives your sky a really effective look to it. Now you can then go ahead when you're done and just pinch all of these layers together if you're concerned about your layers, and then try swiping it to the left one more time and see if you can punch out some of those stars, making them a little bit brighter. And you could even try again with uniform and see if it looks any good scaled down once more. Now sometimes that can look too much, to be honest with you. So just sort of see what looks okay, undo it, see what looks better and redo it. And I'm going to go without. So I'll just leave it duplicated so it's brighter and that's it. And in fact, I'll pinch them together so it's done. Let's then create a new layer. Continue with white, but go into our brush and we want the option of calligraphy in the monoline brush. We're going to go ahead and just draw in the moon up here. Perfect circle. So hold your pen down at the end and pop one finger on the screen, scale it up in size a little bit, and then drag and drop your color in. And then we're going to give this a lovely glow. So we're just going to make sure first of all it's pixel perfect and in the center. Tap on your cursor when you're done, and then go to the layer, swipe it to the left and duplicate it. And we want to change the top one from normal to the option of overlay. You won't see any change yet. And if you tap on the bottom one and change it to add, if we tap on the bottom one that we changed to add and go to our adjustments and Gaussian blur, we're going to blur this out, adding in a big blur. Now you'll know you've gone to the right sort of size, which is roughly around about 30%, when your moon starts to turn a bit blue, like so. And you get that tiny bit of blue come through on it. And I love that. So I'm going to go up to about 31% and tap on my adjustments when I'm done. And now I've got a blue moon. Let's reflect that moon in the water below. I'm going to show you a really easy way to do this as well. We're going to go to the layer. We're going to swipe it to the left and duplicate it and change it back from overlay to the option of normal, because we're going to use this one in the water. So we're just going to drag this up to where our clip layer is to our water, and it will clip itself automatically. If it doesn't, just tap on it and clip it. And then you want to go ahead and grab your cursor. You want to move it down so you can now see it in the bottom of your water there. Tap on your cursor when you're done, and then just go to your adjustments, go to the option of, we want the option of motion blur, and just drag down in a vertical line until you get a nice sort of beam of color like this. So you end up with this beam. Then I've gone up to 42%. You can then go ahead and go back to the layer, tap on it. You can add a drawing assist to it. So it's now going to use the grid system. And if you go ahead and go to your smudge tool, tap on your smudge and use the monoline brush under calligraphy. Got the size set to 5%. If I zoom in, because we're using the drawing assist, I can only smudge now horizontally or vertically. It only allows me to go in the direction of the drawing guide. So I'm going to smudge in and out, in and out, in and out. And towards the sort of horizon now, I'm going to really try and distort this a lot. But as I get a little bit closer, perhaps I'll go ahead and just sort of move it across a little bit here and there, but just not too drastically, to be honest with you. Maybe a little bit wider spread as we get a bit closer towards us, so I can push and push and push, and then also hack away at it by pushing inwards as well from the outside edge, just to show the edge of the water. And when you zoom out, you end up with this lovely sort of scattered reflection. And again, in the distance, I'm just going to try and narrow this ever so slightly by just pushing the reflection inwards, smudging horizontally only, and just trying to push that in and get some cuts in there as well. It looks even better. Like if you have a dark line running through occasionally, or even a bright line that runs across followed by a dark line, it just makes it look so much better and less uniformed. Now, if that's a little bit bright for you, you can always go ahead and tap on the layer, maybe bring it down to say 70%, so you end up with a slightly lighter reflection there in the water. It's now time to move into some lighting effects. So we're going to go right to the top of our layers and create a new layer. Tap on it and clipping mask it to your frame and castle and tree. You're then going to go ahead and change the blend mode from normal to the option of add. And then on this layer, just go to your colors, grab then the first color in the palette. Brush wants to be set to the option of airbrushing and the soft brush. If you set your size to about sort of 31%, just very lightly in this kind of space in the center, just go around a couple of times. You're looking for this extremely, extremely light kind of just blend of color here that goes over the top of our castle. Okay, so you might have just quickly noticed that my camera just very quickly changed and looks a little bit darker. And in fact, it's actually a bit more accurate to what it looks like on screen in front of me anyway. I've just put my camera settings to the correct ones. They were incorrect up until this point. So apologies for that, but it still works the same anyway. So let's carry on. So we just did a light blue covering just in here, really, really light, nothing too much. And then we're going to go to our layers and create another new layer. Tap on it and also clip and mask it. Change the blend mode from normal to the option of add. And let's probably just bring it down a little bit to about 70% just to start with. We're going to go back to our brush, inking and studio pen. And we're going to add some cool details now with the lighting to the castle edges, for example. So just draw like just simple bits of accent and highlight on some of these edges. So you can come down the edge of the castle there, around the top. It's meant to be a bit loose, if I'm honest, in terms of like the styling, you know, like quite simple and almost scratchy like. And you can just add in little accents of highlight where the moon's going to come across, catch on some of the edges here. So for example, where we've got these sort of cone-like shapes, just a few horizontal lines across there, maybe even another one there too, and another one on there. And I'm just taking a look at all these details that I created in the castle and just seeing if there's anything I can accent. Just a little bit on top of there. And of course you do want to be kind of sacrificial. You know, I'm not going to add too much to the left-hand side because I imagine, of course, that the castle doesn't get any light over there, and because of the moon's positioning. So you want to be quite, again, sacrificial of those kind of areas if possible. Just a little few accents here and there. And in fact, that straight line there, I'm going to hold down on my eraser. So change it to the same brush. I'm just going to go ahead and just erase that out because it was too long. I kind of want to keep the silhouette in play. Now, it's not to say you can't add some cool effects though over here. You know, I can create some rocky like lines here and ledges, etc., that run all the way down the kind of cliff edge, all the way down towards like the water. And just accenting on a few little sort of rocks here and there. It just gives it a little bit of detail, and it's fairly simple to do. You know, you can just create dashy kind of lines here. As long as they kind of flow down towards the water, it'll look fine. And then likewise, the tree, I'm going to come across here and kind of show that maybe there's a bit of land here and that pushes that slightly further back. And I can just create like little blades of grass that just get in some moonlight. And I can go close to the edge, but I'm trying not to because of course we're clipped. So it will just end up with a solid line. So I'm not trying to do too much that gets too close towards there. But when I get towards my tree, I can go ahead and, you know, really ramp up the highlights on that edge perhaps. And maybe like another little sort of root line maybe there and another one there too. And then you can just make your way up the tree like so, and then go along the branch edges that, you know, are looking towards the moon. So where that light comes across, and go along some of these top surfaces, along here. And because everybody's branches, etc., are all going to look different, it's just more a matter of you just taking a look at your own work and just seeing where you can accent it. And to be honest with you, this stage is pretty optional. You don't need to do this necessarily. I thought it looked quite cool, so I'm going to keep it in because in my pre-practices, I always redo these designs a couple of times. And this is something that I kept a couple of times prior to today's recording. So just a few little accents. It helps, I think, the content stand off a little bit. And again, you don't have to do everywhere. You know, do it where you think is necessary, but, you know, be sacrificial in some areas. And, you know, that's fine. I can go ahead and take a look and just see where those branches maybe run all the way up to the very top and just maybe bring them back to life by adding in a few little dashes of color on them, but nothing too much. So we've got some lovely little accent lines on our design. And the final step is just a really cool emphasis on the color and lighting. We're going to go to the top of our layers and create a new layer. Tap on it and change its blend mode to color dodge. We're going to use the same color. We're going to go to our brush. Let's go to calligraphy and the monoline brush. And in the center of your screen, just go ahead and draw in a circle and hold your pen down at the end to create a perfect circle. And then drag and drop your color in. And then what you can do is you can go to your cursor. If you go to uniform and you tap on one of these dots, you can just make this around about 950. That's going to be around about the same size as me then. And then you can just drag that into the center of your canvas, again hitting the orange lines where possible, just to let you know you're pretty centered, and then tap on your adjustments when you're done. And then just go to your adjustments, go to gauge and blur. Swipe this from left to right up until around about, say, 35%, and then tap on your adjustments when you're done. And now the center of your design, especially if you move it across and turn it on and off, you can see it just emphasizes a bit of a glow, a little bit of fun, a bit more color, just makes it pop a little bit more. I tend to lean a little bit too much towards realism, sometimes a little bit darker, but this just makes it a little bit more fun and interesting. Then go up to your actions, turn off your drawing guide, tap away, pinch your two fingers, go full screen with 4, and you end up with today's finished design. So I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. As always, make sure to tag me in your finished creations over on Instagram and Facebook. They're the best places for me to see your finished work. And like I said, subscribe to the channel for weekly Procreate tutorials. But did you know I actually go ahead and create 3 more tutorials every single month, but they're exclusive to my Patreon supporters. I've been giving my Patreon supporters 3 exclusive tutorials every single month for years now, and the catalogue sits at over 130 exclusive tutorials at the time of recording, and with 3 more added every single month, that catalogue's just going to continue to grow. So make sure to check out my Patreon using the link in the description down below. And if you like this video here on YouTube, you'll love this one on the screen now. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.